I want to thank the entire family for giving me the opportunity to honor Ann Lane the best way I know how. And because I can't be there today with you, I thought there's no better place for me to be than here. At home and in church, where Ann Lane loved to go when she came to visit. I can't think of a time that Ann Lane didn't express all sorts of excitement coming up here to church, whether it was the ice cream socials back in the 80s or after the kids all got grown up and on their own. When she came to visit with Tracy or Mike, she would want to first come to church service. So I thought, how better to honor Ann Lane than to come to the place that brought us all together as a family. Ann Lane was the glue of all our families. She had that ability to, through laughter and a mixture of seriousness, be able to cover just about anything that was wrong and have us all laughing while talking about some pretty difficult issues. In a lot of ways, I think of the Beatitudes in the book of Matthew, and the words that jump out at me are, blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are the peacemakers, and when I think of that, I think of Ann Lane. I've rarely seen many people in this world that had the ability, with the ease that she did, to associate with all people and do it in such a way that everyone felt she was one of them. Whether it was her great-grandchildren, or the grandkids, or Mike and Greg and Tracy and Tammy, or any of her siblings, or as I mentioned on Facebook, or her parents or even her grandparents, Ann Lane could sit down with any group and immediately fit in. And in every one of the groups, she had so much credibility. It just seemed to just come out of her. She was at ease. She was comfortable. She could connect with anyone. And then the neat thing about Ann Lane was that Ann Lane could just sit there and she could size you up in a matter of seconds. And before you were done talking to her the first time, she would pretty well have you nailed down. All your oddities and all your special things about you that made you who you are. She had it all down. And she had that ability to get where you were and be able to relate to you in a way that you felt like you were a long-lost friend. Well, she was everybody's long-lost friend. She was probably the most popular person in the public health department where she worked. And I remember her coming up to visit. As everybody knows, Ann Lane could talk. I don't know where she got that from, but she could talk. She could just talk and talk and talk. Luckily, it seems to have skipped a generation. Didn't get any of us in our generation. But we all know that Dad, Ann Lane, Aunt Donna, Aunt Joanne, Aunt Diane, Uncle Gary, all the other Nicholses in that generation talked, and when they got together, nothing ever happened. They talked and talked and talked for hours. People say, where's Aunt Lane? Well, she's late again. Why? Where is she now? Well, she's over at so-and-so's place. They're talking. She loved just communicating with people, just visiting with them and sharing with all the exciting things that are going on in their lives. And she'd share hers. Tracy, Tammy, Mike, and Greg, you know how special you were to her. And she just beamed talking about you. And my goodness, the story she talked about you guys, I can't begin to tell you all the things she shared. And it was neat. As you guys know, whenever I hear you guys were coming up, I'd sit there next to the driveway at Grandma and Grandpa's house, and I'd wait for you all day to come. Because you were the exciting moment of the year to have my cousins come home. And I look forward to that like nothing else. And the biggest kid in the car was Ann Lane. I'd see the car coming over the hill, or the knoll. There aren't any hills around here really, but it's about the best you got. And they passed the church, and as it got closer, I was watching for the vehicle, unless you guys threw me out of the car to tell me. And Ann Lane would be the first with the biggest smile, waving as fast as she could. Just happy to get home. And that same joy was there every single year that she came home. I'd see that smile, that sparkle in her eye, and that little twinkle that said, just wait till I tell you what I've got to tell you. And Ann Lane was home. And of course, Ann Lane never had a free moment on her vacation, if you want to call it that, because she'd go from one relative to the other, just stop in to say hi. And she'd do her best to try to see everybody, because everybody mattered to Ann Lane. That's what made Ann Lane so special. To every one of us, Ann Lane made us feel special. And that's really a blessing. In this world today that doesn't care about anybody, Ann Lane was the oddball because she cared so much about everybody. You were one of hers. And you knew it. And she wanted you to know how much she cared about you. And with that zany smile, she would give you a big hug. She'd say, "Hello, Thomas!" And we'd start in, and away she'd go. Mike and Greg, you remember different times we'd be out playing football in that yard across the driveway that we destroyed time and time again at Grandpa. And here comes Ann Lane, and she'd come right out there and she'd grab the football and she'd start running with it. Try and tackle her and see what happens. She might be 5'1", but if that, but she could make everybody else run and try to catch up to her. And she was the biggest kid out there. The night before she found relief from all the health problems that slowed her down the last few years, she was watching football with Mike. And everybody knew she wasn't feeling well. But she was happy because she was spending that time with Mike. And she was happy spending time with Greg. Just like she was happy spending time with Tracy or Tammy. Or any of their kids. And when things weren't going well, she had a way of looking past all the pain that she was experiencing. And she was more worried about what you were going through than what she was going through. And yet she would marvel about how strong everybody else was. I think that the strongest one in our family was Ann Lane. For those of you that don't know the entire story about Ann Lane, she's always been a survivor. For those of us that know her really well, she was the victim of a hit-and-run accident walking alongside the road. But she wasn't just hit, she was hit hard enough that she should have died. The driver hit her and knocked her into the ditch. And no one knew she was there. And she was left there to die by this hit-and-run driver. But they went out looking for her and they found her. Of course, you hear Grandma telling the story about Ann Lane when she was born being small enough that you could put her head inside the teacup. Of course, I never had to work with that with my fat head. But it started with Ann Lane being small at birth and always being small of stature, but you couldn't keep Ann Lane down, even when a car hit her and never thought to stop. She lived from that and she bore the scar of that accident her entire life. But I'm reminded what an inspiration Ann Lane was because she never let the scars of life slow her down. And she's been through a few, and I'm not going through them because it isn't necessary. But all of us know the ones she's been through and all the ones that she has survived so gracefully through. She came through strong. And she came through as an inspiration to the rest of us. She's the one who brought peace to everybody else. And when there were disagreements among her siblings, she was the one who took the effort, who made the effort to go out and make sure that she tried to bring us all together. And somehow she helped ease through the pain and get us to a better place where we would never have to worry about knowing who we are. We were the Nicholses because of Ann Lane. We're lucky. Some families don't have an Ann Lane. Well, I need to let you guys know again, all of our kids, grandkids, and great-grandkids, you need to know how much Ann Lane loved you. I mean, you've talked about it, but I want to be intentional and tell you how special you were to her. Each and every one of you. And I gotta tell you, she knew every hair on your head. The good ones and the bad ones. All those little traits about us, she knew every single one of them. You know, we think, well, she didn't know about this. Oh, yes, I did, I knew. And she did that smile. And it didn't affect the way she thought about us. She loved us just as screwed up as we are. Well, Ann Lane, thank you. Thank you for reminding us who we can be. Thank you for reminding us who we should be. I hope that maybe if we want to honor Ann Lane's legacy and her memory, maybe we can take some time and try to be a little more like Ann Lane was. And it's not an issue of saying, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. You tell me a time when Ann Lane said, we can't do it. Because I can't think of anything that Ann Lane could not do. She worked her butt off, taking care of everybody else, whether it was working for public health or just running around getting people to practice. When her kids grew up and taking her kids' to practice everywhere else. And when they were in trouble or had issues, they came and stayed with her. Ann Lane was the haven that everyone else could stay with if they didn't seem to connect somewhere else. Well, she's not gone. And the last thing I'll share with you is that she's not gone. Ann Lane's spirit is alive and well. And you know she wasn't very churchy, but she was very religious. And you know what I mean by that. She didn't go out there and wear her heart on her sleeve, but she had a very deep faith. And Tracy, I feel for you, because you and your mom have been so close for so many years. You and brother will be okay, because Ann Lane made sure you'd be okay. But maybe it's time for us to not only benefit from the way Ann Lane acted towards us. Maybe it's time for the rest of us to try to be a little more like she was and to learn from what she was, and that was a person who could bring people together. This is going to come as a shock to some of them. There are some in the Nichols family who have some stubbornness. I, unfortunately, was not blessed with that problem. I'm not stubborn at all. Tammy and Sean. But we all have a little bit of stubbornness in us. I'm not sure which side of the family it came from because there's a lot of it. But maybe we should really spend some time looking at ourselves and seeing how we can honor Ann Lane. She gave us everything she had. She literally gave us everything she had. When she was sick, she was asking questions about everybody else. She was more worried about us than she was herself. Well, Ann Lane's spirit, as I mentioned a minute ago, was alive and well. Because the physical part of her body, the physical part of her being, was getting worn out. It was getting tired out. And yet she overcame so much. The spiritual part of ourselves, at death, the physical part is left behind. And the spirit part separates from the physical. And that spirit part goes somewhere. There's no doubt I know where her spirit is today. And I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that Ann Lane would really like to have all of us with her at her house, in God's house. We're safe. But it does mean that we need to value the value of one another. We need to value the time we have with one another and to get past the stubbornness that sometimes prevents us from saying we're sorry and saying we love each other. So, I ask you, how can we honor that wonderful lady who was the most athletic, most kind, most considerate, strategically very well centered in her thinking, and taught us how to love one another? She might have been the oldest, but that didn't slow her down. Let's honor Anna Lane. Let's try to get past the stupid stuff that takes place in life and stop letting that stuff hold us back from each other and from ourselves. And let's make Anna Lane proud. We need some of that in this world today. Her soul's been set free, and she's now benefiting from the love that she gave to others. Sometimes we do a better job talking the talk than walking the walk. She walked it. She walked it very well. And she did it with grace and laughter. I was trying to think, what if you were to try to put Anna Lane together in a dish? The only thing I could think of was you take Grandma Walton and you mix Grandma Walton with Carol Burnett and Lucy Ball. And that's Anna Lane. She had that very serious side, and she had a way of looking at you. It was time to listen very carefully right now because she has something she wanted to tell you. And at the same time, she could be as zany as Lucille Ball and willing to do anything to get you to get where she needs you to be, like Carol Burnett. Thank you, Anna Lane, for being who you are, for blessing us with your kindness, your patience, and your love. For her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, we'll be with her someday. If we're willing to love a little more and to just be who we are. Anna Lane was able to accept us as we are. Sometimes we have more trouble accepting ourselves. But for all of our grandkids and great-grandkids, look at what Nanny told you. Look at how she taught you. She taught you to love others first. So, do that, and you'll make your Nana proud. I love you guys. My tears fall for you guys. And I feel kind of selfish because she gave us so much. How can I feel so selfish to say we keep her forever? But when you have an angel in a community like Anna Lane was, you can't help but want to keep her with you forever because she was just funny to be around. But I'm thankful for all the time I had with her. And I hope that we'll again see her someday when our spirits are separated from our physical beings and we're freed and allowed to go to a place that's surrounded by perfect love.